So let's turn to our next guest, who had a close escape, to say the least, with regard to keeping his PGA Tour card for next season. Seamus Power, come in.
Yeah, how's it going?
Very well. Thanks for joining us. I know you're having a busy week, and thankfully you do have a busy week. It could have been very different.
Yeah, it really could have. Yeah, I got very lucky, but it was a great break.
For people maybe not so familiar with how the FedEx Series works and keeping your PGA Tour card and all that kind of business, if we were to boil things down, you go and you play at the on the best tour in the world, the most competitive tour in the world, and at the end of the year, you need to be in the top 125 players on tour, in short. And you went into the final tournament of the regular season, the Wyndham Championship, and you were ranked 1, 2, 3. You missed the cut. You need to be in that 125 bubble. And in the end, you just had to sit there on Sunday and hope that some guys fell backwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to be honest, when I finished on Friday, I played very badly. I was disappointed. I didn't think there was any chance I would hold on to that 125. But yeah, I mean, things fell my way. I mean, it came down to a couple guys, and I was fortunate. I think Sergio was the guy. Really, he made a couple of bogeys on the back nine, and without that, I'd be looking at a much different month than I am. So it's a great feeling. I feel like I've got a great break, and hopefully I can take advantage of it. When
Sergio makes the turn and he's 1 under going into the back nine, it's asking a lot for him to throw in 3 bogeys and to fall backwards and to give you your chance. Where did you watch that?
I was watching it in my apartment, and I only turned it on actually when he was early on the back nine. So yeah, because I kind of took a quick glance, and I was like, I kind of confirmed what I thought, that it wasn't going to work out. He was playing well, and other guys, and with Sergio, all his experience, and I was following his stats. He wasn't missing any greens. It just didn't look like there was any chance he would make those, drop those shots. So, I'm not sure what happened, but I was fortunate that he did, and so it just fell my way.
Not that you might want to admit it publicly, but a strange experience to be fist pumping and cheering as another man makes a bogey.
Oh yeah. It was. I mean, you never want to wish that on anyone, but
you did. Come on,
Sergio of all guys. I mean, he just won a major, and he's got all these exemptions and stuff. So I don't worry too much about Sergio.
No, Sergio's going to be just fine. This isn't about Sergio.
Sergio will be just fine. Yeah.
God, the relief. Were you watching on your own?
I was. Yeah, sure. And nobody would have been safe to watch it with me. To be honest, I was doing my best not to watch it, and then I said when he was getting to the back nine, I kind of tuned in a little bit, and I couldn't move I was sitting there for a couple hours, probably no more than 6 or 8 inches away from the TV, and it was a very strange experience. Because I'd convinced myself that it wasn't going to work out, and then Sergio made, I think it was the 2nd or 3rd birdie. I kind of let myself think that maybe it was, and then David Hearn then makes an eagle on 15, and I'm like, oh gee, it was a crazy roller coaster, but just having no control whatsoever was the worst part. Normally when you're in those situations, you're out on the golf course, and if you play well, you can make a difference. But when I was just sitting there in front of my TV in my living room, there's just nothing you can do, and it made it much harder to watch actually.
Yeah, I can imagine. And golf is slow at the best of times. So even just waiting for it, geez, where the hell is Sergio? We haven't seen him in 5 minutes.
I've said that a couple of times. I was shouting at the TV. I was like, I can't believe how slow these guys are walking. Hurry on a minute. It was just so interesting. Like, it was just strange. And then they would show guys that really, the guys winning the tournament had pretty much no effect on me. So I had no interest in even seeing those guys. It was just those 2 or 3 or 4 guys that could influence me. Is what I wanted to see. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. Someone I wouldn't really want to have again next year. So going to have to make some improvements to get away from that mark.
Yeah, no doubt. Were family and friends texting? Because I presume they're watching back at base as well.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. I was sending messages like crazy. Just kind of in and out. It was just strange because they're obviously in the same boat. They're hoping for the same things, and obviously they also have no control either. So it was just trying to keep everyone kind of calm as possible for a few hours.
Yeah, some Sergio voodoo dolls going around Waterford, legs being pulled off and kicked, and prayers being said, and holy water being kicked, everything going on, I'd say.
Anything possible, I'd say, yeah.
I guess it's no exaggeration to say it's your livelihood. You know, that is what's at stake. I mean, your life is utterly transformed for the worse if something as silly as Sergio, you know, holds those few putts. It's incredible sometimes with golf, the extent of change over just some tiny margins like that. And I know, look, it's you have the whole season to make sure it doesn't come down to that, but it so often does come down to that for someone. In this case, it was you. And your life really would have been transformed. What were you looking down the barrel of if Sergio hadn't thrown in those 3 bogeys?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so like I'm in New Jersey playing this week, the first FedEx Cup event. Obviously, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I would have been looking at playing 4 playoff events over the next 5 weeks on the web.com tour, to try to get my card back that way. And if that was successful, I'd be back in the same boat I was starting this year, where I'd have that conditional status and get in most tournaments, but not all. But if those 4 playoff events hadn't gone well, it would have been tough. I probably would get in 14 to 15 events next year, which is, you know, it's tough. You really have to play well in the events you get in. And knowing that you have such a limited number of starts, it obviously makes it a little tougher because you have a little bit of added pressure. But it's just the peace of mind of it all. I said now, I mean, for the first time in a couple of years, I can kind of schedule and plan my whole next 12 months. I know what tournaments I'm going to play in and all that sort of stuff. So it's much easier. I don't have to worry about like re-ranks and reshuffles and any of that sort of stuff. So it's extremely helpful. It's going to make the next 12 months much more straightforward for me and much easier to plan, which is, you know, it gives you just a little bit more peace of mind. Yeah,
no doubt. And like, you know, life is about momentum, sport is about momentum, and you having that choice now means that you can target courses and events that you think suit your game, as opposed to having to take whatever you're given, even if it mightn't suit you, and then you go further backwards and then you get less pickings and you probably start to question everything, question yourself, whereas now you can really sit down and say, well, what courses are going to suit me? What parts of the country, what time of year suits me? So it really gives you a chance to put your best foot forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can set your schedule. Like I had a stretch there recently again, Greensboro was my 9th tournament, or is it 10th tournament in 12 weeks or something like that. Like a schedule you really don't want, or it's not helpful. But, you know, when you're in a situation where you just have to play every tournament you get in, it's kind of what you have to do. So, you know, next year I'm going to be able to space it out and plan it out a little bit better, where I can play my maybe like 3 in a row and then take a week or 2 off and then come back again. So, you know, that's there's just a lot of advantages like that. That you know, you're not even going to feel the advantages of until maybe next summer, but they're going to be there, and it's a very, very nice feeling.
Yeah. I presume you're absolutely destroyed playing 10 weeks out of 12. Like even the average weekend golfer, you're kind of flat on the couch after a round of golf. You're wrecked. I even wonder how you do 4 days in a row sometimes. But to do 10 and 12 weeks plus travel, plus pro-ams, I mean, whatever about mentally, physically you must be a bit of a wreck.
Yeah, physically, I mean, you train for it. I mean, like you put in, like, you know, nowadays, like the gym is such a big part of all that stuff for golfers. You know, everyone's got their off-season stuff and their trainers and all that stuff. Physically, it's not too bad. It's probably still a little bit because, I mean, when you become mentally tired, there's no doubt it affects your physical sense too. So, but it's definitely the mental thing. You just aren't as sharp on the golf course. I mean, even in my 7th in a row, I was playing in Reno. I looked at my cat. I hit this putt from probably 15 feet, and it hit about 7 feet past the hole. And I marked it, and I kind of strolled over to my caddy and said, like, it didn't even register to me that putt was downhill, even though, I mean, it's obviously downhill. And it's just like little stuff like that where you're just not quite as sharp as you would be when you're normally playing. But you know, it's part of the deal. That's what you're fighting for, to get in that 125, so you can avoid situations like that. So. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be another perk. It's going to be, hopefully I'll be able to set my schedule that kind of suits me a little bit more and avoid those situations. Yeah.
It's hard to overstate just how competitive the PGA Tour is and just how good the world of golf is at the moment. I mean, the depth of talent just goes on forever. We're talking about the tiniest of margins here. So with that in mind, I'm asking this question. Where did it go wrong across the season? How did you find yourself in this position? I saw you saying, you know, generally you were pretty good on the greens and you weren't driving it too badly, but maybe it was somewhere between tee and green that things were going a little bit awry?
Yeah, I was actually just looking at my stats the other day. Yeah, I mean, I ended the year like 15th in putting, like 11th in stand saves, and 13th, I think, in scrambling. So that's all. Like, they're all like good numbers and strong. And off the tee, not fantastic, but not absolutely detrimental because I'm long enough to get away with it. I mean, I was like around the 90th spot, but it was really the approaches to the green. I was poor. Outside of some of the wedge distances, I was really ranking in the bottom. It's hard to know exactly what it's ranked out of, but I was maybe 140, 150 and lower in like ranking wise in all those stats. You know, and you're only looking at, I don't know, maybe 190 guys that play regularly on tour. So that's going to be the point of emphasis for me going forward. Is I've got to get that. I've got to get some shots closer to the hole, more online. So that was definitely the weak point. I knew it myself going along, but you know, as I said, when you're playing 10 tournaments in 12 weeks, there's really not a ton you can do. There's not really many tweaks you can make. You can't make a big drastic swing change. Sometimes you just kind of have to go with it and fight and scrap for everything you can. And you get to a point then where you have a little bit of time, you can make those tweaks. So hopefully I'm going to have some of that time coming up, and that's going to be something I can improve going into the next season.
Yeah. So what ranks as kind of average these days when you're on the PGA Tour? If you're 100 yards out, 120 yards out, you've got some kind of wedge in your hand. Where do you need to be sticking that in relation to the pin in terms of, how many feet away for it to be tour
on
standard?
Average, from that distance, you're looking at inside 20 feet. The guy's top of the stats would be maybe 12 feet. Average would be maybe 16, 17, and anything below that, and you're really struggling.
And where were you? Were you like, is it only when you saw the stats you realised, or did you feel you had a bit of an issue there?
Oh no, I knew it. I mean, I had, to be honest, over the last like 2-3 months, I had more 50 and 60 footers than I could possibly. It was unbelievable.
Right.
I said, fortunately, my putting was pretty strong. Otherwise, I would have been in real trouble. Yeah, no, I knew it. I mean, you're standing over, like, the ball isn't coming out on a consistent flight. You know, one is going right, one's going left, and that just makes it then impossible because if you're looking at a left pin and you don't know if it's going to go left or right, you end up missing it obviously right towards the safe part of the green, but you miss it further right than you should, and then you've got 25, 30 feet instead of the guy with you's got 15, and he's going to make maybe one out of every two of those, and you're not really going to make many 30-footers. So, every two shots, every two attempts into the green, you're dropping maybe like close to a full shot on the good players.
Yeah.
That's just tough. That's why you just have to scrap for everything I could. But no, I really need to revamp it a little bit, and that's what I'm going to do here as soon as I get a chance.
It's kind of insane to hear that. Like, you'll have to explain that one to me a little bit, because like the 15-year-old version of you with 100 yards in would have been stitching it plenty of the time, to get to the level you've got at. And then somehow you get to a point on tour where you're playing all the time and you're, peak of your powers, 31 years of age, and you're not entirely sure if it's going to go slightly left or slightly right off the club. It's kind of amazing that could happen. Like take football. The way David Beckham struck the ball at 14, he could do it better all the way through his career then. He knew what way it was going to go. It's insane that you can kind of get yourself, the golf is so volatile, you can get yourself to a point where from 110 yards in, you're not entirely sure if it's going left or right. It's amazing, really. Yeah,
I mean, the PGA Tour is a different beast with that. It's like the pins are tucked in spots where, I mean, they're like 3 paces from the left-hand side of the green or right-hand side of the green, or they're always close to a ridge or something like that. So it's one of those things, if you can't hit it within that, like, say, 3 or 4 yard circle, it's going to catch a ridge or it's going to miss the green, and the ridge is going to take it another 15 feet away from the hole. Or, if you miss it on the other side, on the short side, you're short-sided and really no chance of getting it up and in. So the margins become smaller. Like, it's amazing the difference that can make, even just approaching the green. So that me at 15, I would have had the same issues, but without the same penalties going into the green type thing.
Fair enough.
I mean, this week you're looking at the course, and like you miss a green, and you're in rough that's 4 or 5 inches high, and you've almost got, unless you get fortunate with lie, you've got very limited control on the ball, and so you have to avoid that. But when you can't reduce the miss on the other side, is when the issue is. So the pin is 3 from the left. Normally you're going to be aiming maybe 2 paces to the right of it, and that's when it becomes the issue, when you can't control the left or right issue, because then you want to miss it on the middle side of the green, but if you miss it that little bit too far to the right, it's going running down another bank and you're 30, 40 feet away from the hole.
Yeah.
So it's just, that's why it's the PGA Tour. That's one of the skills that they're going to require you to have to be able to hit shots accurately in the right distance. And, it's don't get me wrong, I still hit some good ones, but it's just not quite knowing, and just not having the ball under the control that you like is always is kind of the feeling you want to get away from. So, I said, I've already started working on it, and I'm going to work on it going forward, and it's going to be better going into the next season.
Yeah, no doubt, because that's a fairly tense combination that you've just outlined there. You don't want to be doing that for your livelihood. To crudely sum up the year, you played in 27 events, you finished in the top 10 twice, including in the Zurich Classic in New Orleans, which is a big tournament. You finished in the top 25 6 times. You made the cut 14 times. You missed the cut 12 times. Like, on the face of it, that doesn't sound terrible at all. And like, we saw you on plenty of leaderboards across the year, especially like early on in events, or definitely in the mix. There's various types of players on the PGA Tour, aren't there? There's the guy who comes out and is nowhere for 6 months and then wins and gets his tour exemption for another 2 years. And then there's like the Matt Kuchar, stamp that paycheck every week, I'm in the top 10 kind of approach. Yeah, there really is. You described it well there. I mean, there's some guys that, they'll make all their points, all their money in a couple of weeks, and then you really won't see them for a while. And then there's other guys who sometimes at the end of the year you're just amazed that they're that high in the money list of points, because you don't remember seeing them in contention much. But you look up and they finish 12th and 9th and 14th, and it's like a whole bunch of times. And both work. There's guys that have stayed on tour a long time doing it either way. But I think the key is, especially if you're the guy that's up and down, you have to realize that that's kind of who you are, and not when you do have those down stretches, not to absolutely despair, and realize that your game has always been, when it's hot, you can get very hot, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. That's I think one of the fun things with golf. There's some guys who hit it a mile, and there's some guys who hit it very straight. There's some guys who are good putters. There's no kind of set formula. Obviously, the more of those things you can do well, the more dominant a player you can be, and that's when you get those Dustin Johnsons and Rory McIlroys and Brooks Koepkas and those guys. They can do a lot of those things. They can hit it very long and very straight and putt well and do these things. But there's a lot of guys on PGA Tour that do, they maybe do one or two of those things, and so it's a whole big melting pot of golfers. It's fun. Even you walk down the driving range, a lot of different swings, a lot of different ball flights. And people do it their own way, and you kind of have to figure out what works for you, and really make that count. And what do you think, if you were to have a long PGA Tour career and still be out there in 10 and 15 years' time, which bracket do you feel is the most realistic route for you, or the best route for your personality? Well, for me, I've got the unusual thing. I've got the putting, so if I can get the ball striking going, I feel like I can be a bit of both, to be honest. Yeah. I've always been a good enough putter where if I can hit it pretty well, I can make some noise up and around the top of the leaderboard. And my problem is it was one of those years where I just wasn't, I was always searching for something new and just never really got anything going. But, for me, I've always believed I have the talent to be certainly both. I believe I can win tournaments, but I can be a consistently good player too. I haven't shown that to the extent I would like it, but I do believe that deep down. I've got some natural talents where I've always been able to hit it far enough, and I said I'm good with the putter. So if I can just combine them with, improve that middle of the, whatever you call it, middle of the game, shots. I can hopefully do a bit of both. Yeah, no doubt, because look, your driving distance is about 303 yards, which is just fine, and then if you're doing well on the greens, then there's a lot right there. I guess a final point to touch on, you must be getting to grips with the rhythms of the PGA Tour now and how it all works, and I'm very curious. We hear the big cliche is that the European Tour is quite friendly, and if you come down from your hotel room at 7 or 8 o'clock, there's people in the lobby ready to go for dinner together, whereas the PGA Tour, there's entourages and it's a more solo kind of gig. How have you found it? Is it collegiate? Have you made friends with fellow players or caddies, or how have you found life on tour? Yeah, no, I enjoy it. I haven't played enough in Europe but I've heard the similar things just talking to some of the guys. Yeah, you do. Like the top guys in the US, you really don't see it all. They all have their, as you said, their entourage. A lot of guys are traveling with 2-3 people, and
some of those guys, like they have private houses and they have their own chefs and do all that sort of crazy stuff. But there's still a lot going on. There's not I could see there's not as many guys. Again, people want to travel with their families and do something like things like that. But no, from playing college golf and then mini tour golf and playing like the web.com, I've met enough guys to just to shoot some texts going, hey, let's get some dinner, and that's always fun. Like it's.
And who would those guys be, Seamus?
A lot of the guys that came up on the web.com with, to be honest. Or funny thing, even one of the guys I was playing against last week, or one of the guys who was running me down last week, David Hearn.
Yeah.
He's my partner in New Orleans this year, so I became good buddies with David Hearn. And we'll get dinner a bunch, and then somebody like the younger guys off the web, and then even when like Padraig and Shane and stuff are over, hopefully try to get some. Hopefully hook up with them. Depending on, obviously, always depends on tee times and that stuff. So you kind of, I mean. It is what you make it. There's certainly not as, even from the web.com as a perfect example. When I played the web.com, you've got a lot of young kind of guys all kind of doing the same thing, and it's kind of more friendly and more everyone's kind of doing stuff together. Where on the PGA Tour, you kind of have guys on very different levels. Those top guys are kind of living in a different world to people in the middle of the pack. So it's a bit of both, but I enjoy checking out places, and I said I'll have dinner with my caddy, I'll have dinner with some friends, and all sorts of stuff like that.
I'm sure there's some nights you do like to just kick back with your private chef in your house.
Yeah, well, it doesn't sound so bad either, does it?
Yeah, I can imagine. And look, it's fantastic that you've kept your car. I mean, it's such a difficult tour. I don't know, have you got any nice draws across the course of the year? Like, is there anybody that you've played with who has stood out and impressed you? I know there's so many brilliant guys, but I always like asking pros who's impressed them in person across 18 holes, because sometimes they see things we don't always see on TV. I don't know if certain names jump out at you. Yeah,
I'm trying to think who was this year. I haven't really played with any of the big names this year.
Any year.
The most impressive guy I've played with was Brooks Koepka last summer. It was the week before he won the US Open. I was very, very impressed. He just had a different look to him. He was so cool and calm on the course, and then when he hit the golf ball, it's a different noise. He really gets into the back of it, and that was kind of impressive to watch. But you play with certain guys, and some guys are impressive in different ways. It's kind of strange, but he was certainly the most obviously impressive. That's for sure.
Yeah, we had Claude Harmon on we do a golf podcast here. Claude Harmon came on and he was kind of even telling the story where Koepka turned up at the US Open this year and shot a pretty good round, and they waited to be interviewed afterwards, and nobody came near them. And when they were driving back in the car, there was an element of, right, stuff all these, I'm going to show them. They can interview the golden child all they want. If I win, they're going to have to interview me. I wouldn't say, I don't want to use the phrase chip on his shoulder, but he's definitely got that. He's definitely got a bit of that going on as well. He's not always got the attention maybe his game deserves. No,
I would say that's definitely part of it. And he went he didn't go. And it's not easy. Obviously, those guys earned it, but he had to go play in the Challenge Tour for a couple of years and earn his kind of whatever you want to call it, earn his stripes that way. As opposed, a lot of those guys were getting interviewed probably wouldn't have. So I imagine he does have some element of that for sure. But I'll tell you, he's making up for it pretty quickly. It's 3 majors in just over a year. He looks like he can win a whole bunch more.
Yeah, it's so tough. I mean, I guess that's the last point to finish on. I mean, trying to predict how many anyone's going to win is tricky. So Koepka's suddenly at 3. It's kind of amazing, really, that the likes of Dustin Johnson and Jason Day and even Justin Rose are still stuck on 1. Rory's been stuck on 4 for a while. They just seem like they're near impossible to win at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's one of those things you want. I mean, I obviously they're on a different level, but to me, sometimes a lot of guys have tried to do what Tiger does, I feel like, where he puts so much emphasis on winning the majors, and he was able to handle it mentally. But when you start winning them, I don't know. It seems to me that all of a sudden that they just become such. It's like a mental thing. I just want to win majors, need to win majors. Where I'm guessing when you started playing majors, even with Rory, when you started winning those early majors, I'm guessing he was obviously it was nice, but. It was just a thing. He was winning big tournaments. So now it's just I feel like those guys put so much emphasis, so much preparation into just those couple of weeks that you almost added so much pressure to yourself that can be kind of tough to finish off. But I mean, who knows? I mean, who knows what they order? Brooks Koepka looks like he's his heart rate is 50, like when he's about to win a major. It's just unbelievable. I don't know if you can teach that or anything like that, or like who knows. I mean, when Tiger was winning those majors, like he was throwing massive fist pumps. He looked like he could beat 10 people up when he's about to win. So it's different for everyone, but they're not easy to win. There's only 4. And then they're rotating golf courses. Outside of Augusta, every golf course isn't going to suit your game. So, you're right. Might only have a realistic chance to win one major every year. Like, I mean, like it's tough, and then it's so deep at the top of golf right now. It's like, there's so many good players in that top 10. There was years there where Tiger was it was maybe Tiger, VJ, where like I felt like a long ways ahead of a bunch of guys. Where now it's Dustin and Rory and Brooks Koepka and Rose and Rahm and I mean I'm going to leave out guys, but there's so many good players who look like they can win a lot of majors. So it's going to be interesting going forward. Justin Thomas, he's another guy, and
Dustin Johnson, Jason Day.
It's very deep at the top of golf, and there's only 4 majors to go around. So I mean, not everyone can win them. There's more than 4 good players at the top of golf right now. So it's just tough to do, but. Yeah, it is funny how it goes. Like Rory's had won 4 pretty quickly, and he's definitely going to win more. Like with his game and talent, he's definitely going to win more. But it's kind of funny. Like I guess when he made those 4 look so easy. Like when he won at Congressional, it looked like he was going to be Tiger Woods kind of winning majors again, and he very well might. Like he's not even 30 yet. Like that's the crazy thing, and a lot of guys say like their prime in golf is your early 30s all the way up to your mid 30s. So. Who knows? It's a funny thing, those majors, but there's so much pressure and so much media attention on them. It makes it harder to win. Yeah.
Well, listen, Seamus Power, again, well done in keeping your PGA Tour card. I'm sure people do appreciate what a big achievement it is, but just to emphasise, like the level you are playing at is just fantastic. That Waterford accent is clinging on.
Barely.
Yeah. Listen, well done again. Thanks a million.
Thanks, lad.